Are there downsides to deploying Copilot across your organization? Well, the short answer is quite possibly. There's risk in any change, and AI is no different. Today, I'm going to dive into what could go wrong with Copilot. I'm Rynd, and I bring you actionable solutions in 6 minutes or less every week here on the 1001 Business Problems Solved with Microsoft Teams podcast. Today, I might go just a wee bit long, but I promise it'll be worth the extra few seconds. Yes, I say every week, but the most astute listeners will disagree since I didn't give you a solution last week. That's right, there was no episode last week, and it brings to light one of the issues that can happen with AI of any kind, including Copilot. It's been very busy throughout August at County Quest Consulting. We had multiple deadlines to meet, and then the holiday happened, which we also worked straight through. Our goal is to put out an episode every Monday, and as the working weekend progressed, we still had no episode outline, let alone a finished episode. Because we'd been so busy for weeks, we had already used up the episodes we had in the bank for times like this. So, we thought to ourselves, just this once, since we're so busy, let's have Copilot write us a script. We laid out a couple bullet points we wanted to cover and sent Copilot off to do its thing. It returned a script that was so generic that we sent it back to try again. We even fed it past episode transcripts so it could understand my style and habits. While the second and third attempts were much better, they still weren't quite right. It felt hollow. We didn't have a sense of ownership. Even though the script sounded like me, it wasn't me. It was like cheating at Monopoly. Sure, you win the game, but there's no sense of reward. And there, I think, is one of the biggest risks of turning employees loose on Copilot. They may have less job satisfaction rather than more since they don't actually create the product. They also won't become more knowledgeable or competent in the subject matter because they're not putting in the work. So, as you figured out, we opted not to put out an episode instead. Sure, you likely wouldn't have noticed a difference in the product, but we didn't like it. But what about some of the other risks you should be aware of, and how might you avoid those downsides? One is the risk of alienating customers if you rely too much on AI for interactions. AI is good and getting better by the hour, but without a minimum level of human touch, customers will quickly leave you. AI cannot replace the human connection. Sure, you should use AI as a time-saving option for customers, but always have a way for them to bypass the technology if they wish. And as I said earlier, you risk creating generic and homogenized content. If your employees rely too much on AI for their content, everything starts to sound the same, even if it's grammatically and factually correct. Nothing will set your business apart. It will sound like all the thousands of other businesses in your industry. Another issue is costly implementation that results in mediocrity at best. This happens most often if your expectations are too high or you just aim at vague improvements from Copilot instead of focusing on specific processes or errors you want to improve. To borrow a line from Mel Gibson in the movie The Patriot, aim small, miss small. In other words, if you surgically target a specific problem rather than trying to fix everything all at once, you're less likely to miss the mark. Another big potential problem is relying too blindly on Copilot's results. If you just need a quick answer for a small issue and the consequences of inaccuracy are minor, it's okay to trust Copilot with little skepticism. If a topic is important and the consequences are greater, though, employees must be expected to click the reference links in Copilot's responses and ensure accuracy. Copilot can get you to answers quickly, but it still misses the mark too often. Ronald Reagan said, "Trust but verify." That works well for AI too. You should always know AI could be wrong and verify when consequences are significant. Always check references. Blind trust may be fine when consequences are low, but you should always check references when your gut says Copilot may be wrong or when the stakes are high. Even if Copilot is slightly wrong, it's still a great tool because it gets you to answers quickly, even if you have to send it back to dig deeper or double-check its work. I challenge Copilot often, and it always comes back with better results because of it. Even if the original response is correct, it'll provide even more supporting proof the second time if I tell it to think harder. Next, there's the risk of employees feeling threatened by AI. I love this next quote, and I wish I knew who said it so I could give credit. AI is not going to take your job. People who master AI will take your job. That's so true. Sure, as an employer, you can use AI to reduce your workforce. I think that's a losing strategy, however. Unless you have an unusual situation, workforce reduction as a main objective is not good. Instead, your goal should be to grow your business without increasing headcount. I often quote the McKinsey study from a while back, showing that across industries, 61% of every knowledge employee's day is spent doing non-value-adding work like managing email and searching for information. If you can use Copilot and Teams to reduce that 61% significantly, employees will have much more time for strategic and value-adding work such as producing product, serving customers, marketing and selling, or working on strategic initiatives. Things that make for happy customers and increased profit. That's why we created our OMG system. OMG stands for Organize, Manage, and Grow. Organize is laying the groundwork for Copilot and efficiency using best organizational practices in Teams. Manage is about developing business strategy and making sure it sticks using Teams and SharePoint. The grow stage of OMG is what happens when you focus Copilot and the rest of Microsoft 365 on your biggest specific problems and opportunities. You won't want to cut your workforce because you'll be growing too much. You'll need the expertise and manpower to handle the high-value work that's necessary for growth. You might want to check out the omgsystem.com to learn more about our awesome program. Anyway, yes, I know I went over 6 minutes, but I think this was a good topic. If you agree or if you have questions, please let me know by commenting. Also, don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite podcast player. I prefer 5 stars, of course. I want you to have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday. Until then, this is Annie signing off.